All right, we're synced. Just like that.
Boom. That was like pro.
His claps
Pro
are getting
level.
more enthusiastic as we go.
We need to get a cutter,
Yeah, we do need a cutter.
like the professionals.
Yeah.
If we're going to sit here and act like professionals, we got to,
Do we act like we're professionals?
do we?
I don't think so.
No.
Sure.
We try.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that hard, though.
But, yeah, we're going to do a competition for the intro.
Oh, God.
I was just told by the marketing team
Yeah.
that we each have promo codes.
Boom.
So we got Neville promo code. We got a Brady promo code. We got a Gritty promo code.
Yes.
We got a Trail promo code.
Trail's the only one, really, though, right?
Yeah, Neville's the only one. That's the only one that matters. So if you're watching this, we're going to see who can get the most signups with their promo code. So whoever you want
Wow.
to type in, if you sign up for Go Hunt Maps, Explorer membership, we'll give you $20 in the Go Hunt Gear Shop. If you sign up for Insider, we're giving you $50 in the Go Hunt Gear Shop.
All the things.
All the things. We're paying you to sign up is what I like to say.
Ah.
So whatever promo code you want to use, who you want to win.
I can't even spell Neville. Folks, Gritty. Gritty. Gritty.
Is that with two
Easy.
Ds?
Grit.
Gritty.
Or
So
is it
again-
an IE, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Trail's super easy.
Yeah, so if you're watching this podcast, promo code, we got Neville, Brady, Gritty, Trail.
Yeah, I think if you use Gritty, you get an extra deep discount.
Well, I think it's like I'm the only mule deer hunter here, so you guys should just use promo code Brady.
There's way more
Look,
elk hunters.
I think we should just really piss off Brady and not give him any.
None.
Just so he can be
Just
real
don't
mad.
use
Zero.
Brady.
And then we'll have a podcast later asking him how pissed he is about getting dead last.
What's bugging Brady?
Yeah, bring what's bringing
That's
Brady
right.
back.
So yeah, we're gonna have a little fun with this one, little
I like
promo
it.
code contest. But in all seriousness, get in there, check out Go Hunt Maps. A lot of good stuff. It's that time of year. Do some e-scouting.
Yep.
Use our promo code. We're giving you money into the gear shop. Also a great time to take advantage of that and get some new gear.
Yep. Start now.
Starting now. And our guest on today is the one and only Brian Call. He's in the house.
There's probably some more other. There's
Hey.
other Brian calls like
Yeah,
that.
it's
Don't you
pretty
think?
generic, actually.
Is the promo code Brian Call or is it Gritty?
It's Gritty.
Oh,
Gritty.
just cause some
You're trying to
confusion.
confuse them.
Oh, man. But yeah, we've been putting you to work today, huh?
Yeah,
Running
it's
around.
been great. Got to check out the headquarters here, a little lunch. But yeah, it's mostly work and a little bit of fun.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are serious around here.
Oh yeah, we
There's
got
no
you
messing
scheduled from
around.
right when you walked in. They're like, "Hey, make sure, Porter's
Yeah.
like, make sure you guys are recording
It's
stuff."
Chris
So-
Porter, man.
I felt pounced on a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. Go hunt pounces.
Yep.
And it was that. But it's been good.
Yeah, not too bad. Where are you from?
Cache Valley,
Cache Valley,
Utah.
How far a drive is you drove down here, right?
just about 6-7 hours.
Yeah, it's poke.
You just wanted to see the country, right?
Dude, I hate planes, especially. I mean, let's just be real.
You're scared of
They
them,
made
aren't
us
you?
wear masks for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Brutal.
I just no. I don't like. Look, you'll find out. I don't like being told what to do.
Yeah. See, now you don't want to support them because they were trying to tell you what to do.
It doesn't matter. My theory is there was a time in the past when, the staff on the plane was there to like take care of you.
Yeah.
Oh, you want this? You want a little bit of ice in that? Yeah. You want a little soda? You ask for things.
Yeah.
Now they walk around acting like they're better than you, and you need to just do what they say. I'm like, what happened where I pay you?
I just don't like
It
the
doesn't
airport in general.
The world's
I-
on a power
I
trip.
just don't like the airport. The whole process is
You
weirds
guys are
me out.
crazy. I'm all about flying. Get me on a plane.
Oh, no way, man.
Oh yeah.
In my truck, I'm my own man.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Captain of my ship.
Yep.
I can
Stop where you want.
and take a leak
Yep.
at will.
And the older you get, the more often you got to stop, Neville.
Well, you don't have to take a leak on a plane because it takes you
Yeah, because
10
you
times
don't wanna-
faster to
because-
get to the location.
Because it's disgusting. You don't want to get up and walk down the aisle to the little,
Yeah.
one room, and then
But it wasn't a bad drive at all.
yeah,
I liked it.
yeah.
Got here last night, had a little, hung out with the crew, got to meet everybody, had some dinner.
I was really impressed with your memorization of everyone's name last night. You really were good at that. Like, you knew everyone at the table. It only took you like 1.5 tries.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. You know how you get introduced to like 6 people and
Yeah.
immediately you forgot their
Yep,
name as
immediately.
soon
Yeah.
as you. That's like I used to teach early morning seminary for high school kids, did it for a couple of years, and I had like 25, 30 students, and each time, and I wanted to make sure that those 15-year-olds, like, I nailed their names like in the first few days, and ever since then I got a pretty good habit of
Remember names.
trying to anyway. Yeah.
I think it's a really good habit too to repeat their name after they say their name. That's what I always fail. Like,
Yeah, that's what
oh,
they
you're
s-
Trail, and I have to like say it right afterwards. then I
Trail,
kinda
it's pretty
correct.
easy.
That's what they say is isn't that the trick? You shake somebody's hands, they say your name, and then you
Say it
say it
back.
back to them.
Yeah, in Japan, I was a missionary in Japan, and when I was there, I would hang out, and they would say their name, and I'd immediately forget it. Not my language. But you could always say, "Can you show me your kanji?" And then they would, like, on their hand, they just do all this stuff with their hand, and I didn't know it did. I couldn't read kanji. I don't know what it means. But they'd repeat their name, Brian Call, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's great. That's an interesting kanji." But it was just because I forgot their name.
Yep.
And you learn little tricks like that without being offensive. I know you just told me your name. Can you tell me it again?
I'm terrible at names.
But if you try that, and you say something in the United States like,
Show me your kanji.
yeah,
Let's try that tonight.
Tonight we go to dinner.
Let me see your
Show
kanji.
me your
but
kanji.
you could say like, how do you spell your name? And they're like, Call, Call,
Right.
or
Yeah.
Brian. But yeah, doesn't work as well.
That is
Doesn't
funny.
work as well.
Show me your kanji. So
Yeah.
that's like the written scribe stuff. That's how they write. It's
Yeah,
called
like
kanji.
in Japan, they imported the symbols, the Chinese symbols, which are they're more like a glyph or a picture that means something, and so it's intense.
That's what we need. I'm gonna be down with that.
You need a
I like
symbol?
phonetic alphabets.
Come on.
Yeah.
Brady symbol just be a
Just,
mule deer,
it's just like a picture.
I like that Trail.
Mule, like
deer
you
Jesus.
just sound it out.
just like a bifurcated just the antler, that nice mule deer silhouette.
No, kanji's pictures, and you got to memorize them all.
Oh,
That's just not good.
that's cool.
That's not good.
It's hard to remember.
It's hard to remember that many
bet.
symbols.
Oh yeah, that's that picture. That's you.
That's why.
That's you, bud.
It's maybe why they're so smart.
Yeah, probably. No kidding.
Seems like there's a smarter way to do it, like A, B, C, D. Where you just spell things out.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I mean, Trail's a pretty easy name. Do you know that's not his real name?
Yeah, Clinton Forest Trail. It's my full name. Yeah, Trail's my middle name is what my parents wanted to call me, but then Forest and Clinton are my grandpas on both sides. So
He has a long name.
Clinton Forest Trail. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. So if you're looking
So-
to name your kid, 4 names is
They
pretty
weren't
tough.
Clinton Forest Trail. Were your parents hippies by chance?
Everybody says that. Yeah, no, far from it. Yeah, just stuck Clinton and Forest, and then Trail. Actually,
Interesting.
I've told this story before, but when they first moved out to Utah, there was this old cowboy. His name was Boot Johnson, and he had a boy named Trail, and they liked the name, so it stuck.
His name was Boot.
Remember that one
Yeah,
guy?
his name was Boot.
Remember that one guy who made fun of your name? He also said Neville's the most punchable face.
Oh,
He said there's one guy at GOHUNT who is named after a dirt path.
That's right. Sleeps in a $1,000 sleeping bag or $2,000 sleeping bag.
Named after a dirt path.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
they really torched me, huh?
Yeah, did you know that Trail or Neville is the most punchable face in
In the hunting industry.
That's
You know
what
that?
they gave me.
What do you think? Do you see
Most
his face and want to
punchable.
punch him?
Hit me.
I don't see
You
it.
don't
Like,
It's a pretty sweet picture.
thought
You should
about
see
it.
the one they used. He has this
Yeah,
big
they
big
found like a
mustache.
random picture of me on
Yeah.
the internet.
It's one of those like
Like, I don't
hunting
even-
meme pages.
I don't even know where it came from.
Huh.
It looked like a DUI picture.
Was it?
I was just up against the wall and it's black and white. And I'm like, where the hell did they find this picture?
How long have you had a podcast? How many years has it been?
I started it January 2015.
So you're one of the hunting OGs
Yeah.
in the podcast realm.
I think Meat Eater started the same month as
No
I
kidding.
did, and then I think Jay Scott had started probably 4 or 5 months before any
Okay.
of us, or something like that.
Were you aware of podcasts? Were you listening to other podcasts? Like what? How'd that start?
Yes, I was a big audiobook listener.
Okay.
I also have like
Audible?
when Audible came on, I'm one of the first customers at Audible. I still have the old OG logins and all that kind of stuff from 20 credits a month. And I just listened to a lot of audiobooks, did a lot of construction for years. But then that just moved into podcasts over time. And I wondered, why are there no hunting podcasts in this space? Because I could find them for CrossFit.
Yep.
I could find them for business. I could find them for real estate, whatever. You could pick a topic and you could find some gurus talking about it. And I had learned a lot about health and fitness. I went on a number of years where I was trying to optimize performance physically. And so I was learning about weightlifting, hiking, running, climbing, diet, exercise. And the podcasts that had come out were really good. There was a few that I listened to religiously, and every day they just had me sucked right in. And so I looked in the hunting space because that's something I love and I'm passionate about, and I couldn't find a podcast.
Yeah. The only one I remember was Bowcast back in the day. Do you remember Bowcast? Guys from Salt Lake? Those archers?
Yeah, I know.
I was on their podcast way back in the day quite a bit. And that was like around 2010 or 11. Like that was the only hunting podcast I knew of before.
Those all had that feel of like Trad Geeks was also early like that.
Yep.
But it kind of had that I'm in my basement at my mom's house feel. Not real, like super professional. It was just kind of just some guys hanging out and putting on headsets. And so I decided, I kind of had in my head how I would do it after watching others. Had all these ideas and then topics I wanted to discuss and people I wanted to talk to. And so in the meantime, I had started filming hunts as well. Well, I had been filming hunts since I was a kid. Like as soon as my first V8, like giant cam.
Yeah.
Kind of like Neville back in the day.
Oh yeah.
VHS.
So I was using like whatever primitive equipment existed then, and I filmed tons of stuff. And I didn't know how to edit it at all. I didn't really edit anything. We just watched all the crappy home movies and stuff. That went on for a long time, and I started to get better, and I used iMovie came out and Apple and everything, and I was toying around. And I started making movies after each hunt and sharing them with friends, and then I'd write articles, or I wrote a book like of our hunt with our photos. I'd do it through like Blurb, and I'd put it all together, and then I'd give all my buddies, family members, post-season a book every year that had all of our adventures in it. So I really enjoyed that creative and the hunting and documenting it and sharing it. So I started making some film, and then I found myself with a lot of free time because the job was going so well. I ended up working at home like 4 days a week and only had to pop into the office every now and then. And after a couple of years of that, I was learning I picked up a camera. I'm like, I'm going to do photography. I'm going to film. I'm going to get better at this stuff. And I got better. I went to Full Draw Film School with Cody Kellum and Born and Raised crew.
Oh, yeah.
I ran into Christy Titus. I ran into Jason Phelps there, the whole Born and Raised guys. South Cox was there. And just developed some friendships. And over that crash course weekend, and we made some movies, commercials, ton of stuff, toyed around with it. And then I went home promptly and made a movie about hunting elk and put it into Full Draw Film Tour. And the fans loved it. It was the first year that someone beat Born and Raised for the top film.
Oh, that's kind of a cool thing.
Take that, Born and Raised.
That's right.
I'm texting Trent right now.
Remember that one time?
Remember that one time?
I beat him. I was like, yeah.
You came first or last.
Because they were like, that was like the fourth year. I think they had done it or something, third or fourth year. And so at the same time, that's when I'm like, I should take the skills I've gained over the last couple of years on filming and audio and everything and just start asking questions and having podcasts. And so I was at the Northwest Sportsman Show, checking out I had a Kafaro pack. I went in there and I ran into Snyder and we hung out. It was great. And I was like, do you want to be on a podcast? I've got this podcast show. It's great. And he's like, sure. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it'll be awesome. He's like, how many people are following your podcast? I'm like, you'll be the first guest. It'll be the first episode.
But this thing's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
Okay, whatever. And then within 4 months, trying to do one show a week, it just took off. And then at 6 months, I went to the trade shows, interviewed a whole bunch of people there, met more people. It took off again. And
Yep.
I did this thing where I showed up. It's kind of, I think, the OG of this, where I bring my equipment to the show, set up a booth, and then I'd interview anybody I could get to sit in that booth. So I left the ATA show with like 22 podcast episodes with like Eva Shockey, Cameron Haynes. You know, I tried to get Luke Bryan on there, and like just people that were cruising around the show. Released all those shows, and the following weekend, same thing at Western, same thing at the next. So I ended up with like 60 shows but I mean, every hour I was booked with some guest.
I hope you were drinking some like good throat relaxation stuff from
intense.
talking so much constantly.
It was intense. And then Cam and Joe Rogan popped in at the Western, and he came over, and Joe was like, "Dude, I'm a fan of your show, man.
That's
Listen to
sweet.
it all the time." I was like, "Really?"
Wow. Dang.
He's
That's a
like,
good
"You and
compliment.
John Dudley, yeah, I think you guys are great." And I'm like, "Do you want to do a podcast?" Because the chairs were sitting
Right
right
there.
there. I said 15 minutes could change my life, and he's like, "Yeah, dude." So we sat down. He's like, "But only 15 minutes." So him and Cam sat down, and Snyder and I sat down, and we had a conversation with Joe Rogan and Cameron Haynes, and it was funny. It was great. Like, there was some magic happening, no doubt. And I was like, this is unreal. I kept checking the record button and
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
So
making sure
nervous.
it's going.
Grab that
over
memory
and
card,
over and
back it up
over.
right
yeah, I
afterwards.
was like, something's not going to go right. And Rogan was so gracious, and he was so passionate about hunting, just getting into it in archery. And he was funny, had all these jokes and about hunting. And I was like, I wanted to be really respectful of that 15 minutes, so I started to wrap it up. And Joe's like, "Oh no, we're going to stay here for a while."
Yeah, he likes a long conversation.
And I was like, I think what he was hedging his bets, if it was lame,
He was going to be
he would
out.
have
Yeah.
us out at 15 minutes. But he was having such a good time, and it was he recognizes podcast magic when he
Right.
sees it, and it
Yeah.
was good. And so we ran for like 45 minutes, I think, which his handlers, or whatever you call them, like they're like
people.
his bodyguards.
Gotta
He's like,
go.
"Joe, come on." So he mentioned it on his show the next day or a day or two later. Plus, I published the show that I put out. And we went from like 20. We were doing well. We were getting like 20,000 downloads a show or something to 100,000.
Oh,
It
wow.
just blew up.
So
Yeah.
that really, it's like always, you never know who you're going to meet in that circumstance. It's going to boost you up like that.
I say that all the time. You have to put yourself in positions where magic can happen. If I didn't put look, I felt like such an imposter being there at all. I felt like I didn't. I think we all feel that way at times, where you just feel like I don't belong here. This is an. I'm sitting here putting a booth up at a hunting show, interviewing people.
Yeah, not really selling anything.
I felt like in a fishbowl.
Yeah.
Like everyone was staring at me, and it's just like charge through, pretend like just go, and I think that a lot of times people, because they're worried about what people will think about them, they don't take those chances. But when you do, you never know what might happen. When I asked Joe Rogan to sit down and do a podcast with me, a lot of people wouldn't ask because they don't want to get the no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't want to feel like, oh, I don't want to bug him.
Yeah. And I'm just like, you got to go for it.
Yep, you got to risk it.
And if he said no, he said no. But he didn't. He said yes.
Yeah.
And
then he enjoyed it to stay longer than 15 minutes, and then he talked about you afterwards.
then he became a friend after that, DMing and stuff online. But 100,000 people overnight. And what was great, though, was I've seen people go on Joe's show before they had something to offer people. And so people run over there to see, who is this person?
Yeah.
But then there's not much there, and then they leave. I think one of the reasons that I did well was because I had 60 shows or 70 shows I had
In the can.
recorded that people that were really good that people just hadn't heard of because my name wasn't out there. And when Joe got my name out, but had he come on when I had 7 shows and I hadn't done all that other stuff before I met Joe, I worked my ass off that whole year leading up to that moment. And then after that, it just took off.
Yeah. It's like the perfect storm.
Yeah, it was amazing. And so then then within about a month and a half of Joe being on my podcast, I quit my job and went full time into the podcast space. And
Was that kind of always the? I mean, I don't know.
no,
Wasn't the goal? I mean, I'm interested to what was the motivation initially for you to dive into this space? Was it? I mean, what did you think it would become, or did you think it would become anything, or why did you do it?
I liked hunting
Mm-hmm.
and sharing my adventures with film and stories. That was it. It was just I enjoyed my family and my buddies, Ben and Anthony, their reactions. I liked documenting our adventures.
Right.
That was step one, and I just wanted to get better at that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the podcast was like, I want to learn. Like, I'm really curious, and I want to ask the best of the best. You know, I hunt with Ryan Lampers because as I looked around and as I grew, I'm like, I want to hang out with and hunt with the best. How do I want to do what they do? So I want to hunt with them. And I feel like throughout whatever part of my life, I have tried to find people that were better than me at things and learn how they do it. And that was another part of it. I want to put headsets on people and say, how do you do this thing that you are so good at, and get their answers? And so it was just pure, just hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And then my wife got cancer leading up to, and she got cancer in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And during 2014, this is before I started the podcast, it was, it was tough. But I had been filming and meeting everybody and making movies, amateur, And then what happened was her last chemo appointment, her treatments were in February. So I started the podcast about 2 months before she finished chemo. And really, when she got cancer, the 6-figure income, the big job, all the savings, the 401k, none of it meant anything to me anymore.
Right.
None of it. In fact, this was about the same time, it was December, I think. We were driving down the road, coming home from chemo, and she pointed at this Jeep Rubicon on the side of the road, real shiny, nice Jeep, and she goes, "Look at that Jeep." I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool." She goes, "Man, wouldn't you feel bad if I died of cancer before you bought me one?" And she had for years wanted a Jeep, and I had, "We'll get one someday. We'll get one someday." Yeah. Well, that someday was now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When she had cancer, I was like, I went and got her that Jeep right that month or the next month.
Yeah,
I was like,
that's cool.
Done. I also was like, the time for life is now.
Yeah.
It could have been different if she, none of the things that mattered to me before cancer mattered to me after.
Yeah, you had a reminder that mortality is, it's fleeting, right? I mean,
and the money didn't matter.
Right.
I'm like, if I'm poor, but I do what I love, Gary Vee says, would you rather be smiling in a Camry or crying in a Porsche?
Right.
I'm pretty dang happy with my lower income now, but my rich lifestyle.
Yeah.
I get to be the boss and do what I love to do. So that's how it started. And I think that's one of the reasons why it did so well too, because I wasn't in it for the money. I wasn't in it. I didn't need the money. I was well off financially. No debt. We had done the Dave Ramsey years before. We had saved. We had been responsible. So things fell into place, and then all of a sudden, I just something that was like 2 months before, I was like, I'm just not ever going to make this my full-time thing. 2 months later, I'm like, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
The money is there, and the lifestyle. And
you genuinely liked it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was something. Are you a people person? I'm curious.
Yes, I'm extroverted. I have an extroverted. I'm very outgoing, but those that are familiar, like if you did like a Myers-Briggs test, I have the ENFP personality, which is like the campaigner. They consider me the most introverted of the extroverted personalities.
Ah, interesting.
So I'm very extroverted, but then I need lots of
Yeah.
downtime away from people, a month or so, 2 months. So I'll
That's
be
why,
there.
Works perfect
that's
for
why
you.
you go hunting.
This is all making way more sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those hunting seasons are your time away, right? And then
Yeah.
you come back and
And socially, like I enjoy a lot of this kind of social stuff for a while, but then I'll just disappear for a while where I can't help it. Like I don't want to socialize at all. It comes and goes, and you always feel like I feel some level of guilt, like I have a whole audience and people that are curious about what's going on, and yet I withdraw. And but I think it's just, we're all a little different, and that's how I process things and stay sane. And
yeah. You been hunting your whole life then? Like when did you start hunting?
when I was since I was born, I mean, like my
Born
dad,
with the rifle.
my mom and dad were. My dad was a bow hunter when I can remember being like 5 years old and following him around on the Oregon coast while he's out hunting. I remember him shooting deer, and so we did all that. And then when I was 12, my dad bought me my first bow. It's just a little, fiberglass recurve,
Yep.
Larry Sportsman Center down on McLaughlin Boulevard in Oregon City. And then after that, I was out in the mountains hunting, shooting bows. And my dad was a big time, he had all those early bows that first came out, the compounds, all the different types.
yeah.
And,
He was a gear junkie,
yeah,
an
and
early one.
He did these 3D tournaments with all the guys at church, and they were all way into bow hunting. And so I did that all through up until but when I was 17, 18, I was way into sports in high school, basketball, and I didn't do much in the way of hunting at that point. It was all girls and all sports.
Yeah. Yep. It's
So-
very similar. I think a lot of people in our space are like that. The more people I talk to, I think a lot of us played sports,
Yeah.
and we had some sort of competitive, it just is what
Right.
did it for us. And then, we got out of high school and it was kind of like, oh, we're not good enough to play D1 or whatever. So like, what now? What how do we put,
I gotta go hunting.
yeah, how do we push ourselves and challenge ourselves?
I always loved hunting, but there was that, man, it was the girls, dude. It was less the sports and more the girls. And the sports were the mechanism to the girls.
Right.
Like that was
Yeah.
An avenue.
You
Yeah.
gotta be the starting quarterback to get the
right. There was like, I just think it's a hormone thing almost for at least for me.
Yeah.
I definitely focused on that, and but then got back into hunting. I went on a mission to Japan, came back, and then I got back into hunting in my early 20s, 23, 24, and
Mostly
just-
bow hunting.
yeah, just whatever I could get a tag for, So you could in Oregon we could always get the bow hunting tags. I had some really crappy bows back then, and I didn't kill anything for years with a bow. I could kill blacktails on our property where I grew up, and I would kill blacktails in tree stands and hunt out there, turn the rut and stuff, and they weren't giants. But then I started to kill giants, and then I started giants is relative, but big mature big mature blacktails, and then we would go and hunt elk and rifle hunt.
Rosies.
Nope.
Oh,
would
Rockies. Go east.
We'd go Hell's Canyon,
Oh, gotcha.
Starkey. We'd go in there with rifles and horses and kill elk and pack them out. But then once I hit 25, it was all archery all the time, an obsession after that.
You ventured out of state at this point, or still just in Oregon?
That's when I started going out of
Out of state.
state. Yep.
We had Lampers on earlier, and we were talking to him. He grew up Washington, right?
Yeah.
And we get a lot of questions with the platform that we have and the Insider, the research, and people call in and ask me, often, what's the deal with Oregon and Washington? And I pitch this question to Lampers. Typically, I tell people, if you're not from Oregon or Washington, then don't apply in either one of those two states, because it just seems the cost versus the the value, the opportunity is skewed, right, for non-resident. So, what is it like for a resident growing up in Oregon? Was it good hunting? I mean, is there
You know,
opportunity there for a resident? And what about now as a non-resident?
It's really a bummer, like growing up there and hunting. I didn't know how bad it was until I went on my first average run-of-the-mill Idaho, Montana, Wyoming type hunts, and all of a sudden I'm like, dude, the hunts in those states that you could get over the counter each year rivaled some of the best draw units in Oregon. Because Anthony drew Mount Emily, he drew it twice, like in a row. So he burned like 14 points or something and drew it with his max point holder. Then he drew it with 0 like the next year. I felt like that was sort of unfair.
Someone didn't erase his points.
Something, and his dad drew it too. And his dad, so we got to hunt it 3 years in a row. And Mount Emily is a great area in Oregon. So having done that, and then we went over the border into Montana, Idaho, and had chasing similar bulls. And I'm like, this is stupid.
Over the counter.
Yeah.
Or general.
Yeah.
It's always I always like those guys we talk to who have like multiple, 10+ years of antelope points in Oregon. And they've never ventured out of state to hunt antelope anywhere else. They've always dreamed about it.
You know Sam Davis, and we were hanging out at the show, and he was talking about Wyoming and growing up there and all the hunting he did. And I was like, look, dude, you grew up in Wyoming. Okay, so there's a little asterisk next to all your success.
Yep.
Yeah, not fair.
The motherland.
Yeah. So, Oregon was tough, but you know what? I find that everywhere you go, there's hunting opportunity, and you can increase your skill in every state you're in. My cousin went to Virginia, even West Virginia, and you can find little pockets he was there. He's like, I'm going to hunt whitetails. That's where I'm at. I hunted blacktails. They were in our backyard. And those big, and we had acreage, there was like 40, 50 acres that we could chase. And then there was neighboring acreage that we had permission on. So we got to chase some nice bucks. And it was all right. One thing that Oregon offered was opportunity. Over the counter elk tag. And there were all 300 and 310 inch bulls, 280s, 290s. And dude, if we killed a 300 inch bull, we were on cloud 9.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So what you're saying is there's opportunity, but there's better opportunity.
Yeah. Oregon.
Let's
put it this way. I left Oregon in 2016. And I've never
haven't
hunted
been back
it
to hunt
since.
it. Yeah.
I feel like you got to shoot a Roosevelt elk, though, at least. Got to
I
check
do
that
too.
one off. Got to go in the jungle.
That is on my bucket list.
When are you guys going to go do that?
I don't know, man. It's
You know
tough.
what? You know what that's like? It's just like wandering around, getting rained on, and being cold, and then you shoot like a horse that has little antlers
at
and,
10 yards.
It just
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
Big antlers are better. Always.
Big antlers are better.
Big antlers are better.
Write that down.
Yeah. Roosevelt elk. I mean, I really like the mountains, but I also like open terrain.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of chasing those things. I think that if it's what you got, I did it. I did it a whole bunch. But yeah.
Like, how thick are we talking?
Oh, dude,
It's
like
thick, like
bushwhacking, like
Really? How do you even get a shot off?
Yeah, and blackberry, right?
Is that why they always shoot them straight on? A lot of guys, because
In
you're
the
just calling
chest.
through the
Yeah,
thick.
because you're calling them into 5 yards or 5 feet. The first thing
Just
you see of them is when
bushwhacking the whole entire time.
They poke their head through some ferns and
Yeah.
then right at your end of your
you,
arrow.
you see Born and Raised, like
Yeah.
all their early films and stuff, Angry Spike Productions. We grew up watching all those guys, and you rely a lot on calling because you can't glass.
Right. Got to call
So it's a lot of calling, and you can get them to come in really close. Like, you're not getting some bulls to come within 50 yards of you in some of the open country we hunt. You're not going to call them in any closer than that because there's no cover. They circle and they look, But
Yeah, and I think given the vegetation up there, I mean, they've got to be within 100 yards to hear you probably because of the way sound travels through that stuff. So,
yeah,
they're going to pop in right tight just to see you.
yeah.
Sounds
You can get some up and close.
There you go.
Hunting and all that. But man, I'm a spot and stock guy at heart. I like to see them. I like to survey my domain.
Yep.
And I like to find that herd, then pick the bull I want and then spend the next 2 weeks trying to kill it.
So you kind of over blacktails now as well?
I
Columbia blacktails?
Blacktails are if I had a choice between a giant Rosie and a giant blacktail, I'd choose a giant blacktail all day long. Blacktail will always. I think they're
just the way their demeanor is.
They're the prettiest deer of all the deer species, by far.
And they eat really well too.
Double throat patches, the way they look, their ears aren't giant like those goofy mule deer. Yep. They're just the right proportion. They're cooler than whitetails. They're just cool. Huh. And blacktails don't have they don't have real symmetrical antlers. Like every buck is bizarre or different and unique. And when you get a real heavy old blacktail, it's just cool. But the thing with blacktails is they're some like 90% nocturnal, 95 nocturnal. So they really don't move till, let's say, November 5th through the 15th or November 1st to the 20th. And they only move once or twice in daylight. They've documented blacktails. They literally have shown that they don't wander sometimes more than 100 yards from where they're at all day for almost a full year.
Jeez.
So tight home range.
Pretty challenging hunt.
And then they only move during the night for most of that. And so, you really have that rut window when they finally break the rules and they just get stupid. And they get stupid like whitetails. Well, muleys too. Yeah. And then
there's no dumber animal on the planet, Brady, than a mule deer that's rutted up.
Whoa.
That's a true story.
Yeah.
I mean, you could call elk dumb when they're running, but there's literally not a dumber animal.
I don't know. Whitetails could be dumber. Whitetails could be dumber.
Whitetails are
I've had like 180-inch buck on a doe mule deer literally like walk 5 feet off the end of my running four-wheeler with me sitting on it with his nose just right near
because
backside.
they're the king's deer. They're the most fairest deer in the world. I mean, I'm going to walk
I'm pretty
out
sure
right
this
now.
has just been settled. Mule deer.
Look, the rut is the great equalizer.
Yeah.
I'm not the best hunter in the world. I need all the help I can get. The rut is a beautiful thing. But I think blacktails, though, to me, they require like 10, 15 days of consecutive sits just to get one glimpse for one moment of a mature buck. And that's per year. And so, and outside of that rut window, at least on the Willamette Valley side, I'm not talking about edge bucks that are up in the mountains and stuff. You can get them moving a little bit more, but it's a big commitment. It's not something to film. Nothing happens. You just see birds and chipmunks for like a week.
Are you sitting in a stand then? Deer stand?
I've done both still hunting. Like in the pouring rain during the rut, we'll still hunt. But it's almost the same as tree stand hunting. I move so slow during a still hunt. I've only covered 100 yards in 4 or 5 hours.
Right.
I take one step and I'm just standing there. Might as well just stand in front of below a tree. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, I'm so still. But you can, if you think you know where a buck goes, which we learned our land. I killed one of my best bucks. I killed in just pouring rain, and I just did that still hunt thing, and I moved through the woods for, I don't know. I only moved 150 yards maybe into this little cut,
real slow,
and then there's that buck right where the stow shot.
That's what's interesting about hunting is you start. I mean, I've hunted blacktail on Kodiak. Which is different than what you're explaining, but I mean that's the cool thing about hunting in general. And like I feel like the wider the swath that I've kind of dipped out into, like Wyoming mule deer or whatever it is. I hear you talking like it doesn't sound fun, but it sounds like something I would like to do once, or a few times. Right? Like I would like to try it. Yeah, I mean, just as I hear you describe like the topography and the vegetation and the process of that, I mean, it sounds challenging, but in that, I'm interested. Like that's what's cool about hunting is like, and if you've always just hunted your same state, nothing wrong with it by any means, but like there's so many cool opportunities and species out there, whether it's Coues deer or blacktail or.
The thing about blacktail is I grew up in Oregon City, a little town called Oregon City, off of Redland Road, and went to high school in there. And we had every now and then we'd see a buck in the headlights of our vehicle, driving down our big old dirt road. But I never saw a buck other than a couple of times. We had does all over, and we'd see them with fawns and all that. But I never saw a friggin' buck. Ever. A whole time growing up. And I went over to my buddy's house one time, and he had these big old blacktails on his wall, and I started talking. This is right when game cameras were sort of invented. You know, this is how old, like where they became more common use. And I'm like, dude, these are nice bucks. And he lives right next to me. And he's like, yeah, I shot them all right here. I'm like, well, you're only like 15 minutes from my house. And he's like, yeah, I mean, they're all over your property. I'm like, no, they're not. It's just does. Like, I haven't seen a single buck like this. He's like, oh, they're there. They're just not letting you see them. So, so I sat at a tree stand. Didn't see anything. Hunted for days and days and days, different spots. Then the game cameras came out, and I hung like 6 of them on the property. Dude, there was some big bucks out there, all at dark.
Yeah,
all at dark.
Did you have the old film cameras too?
Yeah,
the film ones.
Yeah,
I
had to go get them all developed.
That was the most exciting time when you
get
that roll. Like, I wonder what's on.
You only get like 35 photos or something.
Yeah.
When you were saying you saw those does, no bucks, and you were trying to figure it out, I was picturing like your dad trying to give you like a biology lesson.
I know. My buddy Anthony's like, "Hey, stupid! If there's does, there's bucks." I'm like, "Yeah, but they're not big." You know? And so he showed me the genetics. I learned a lot. I started putting cameras up, and then as the digital phase came in, I started to find bucks that lived there, that were resident, and I started patterning them. And then there was bucks, just like the whitetail guys. I mean, there would be 1 buck or 2 bucks I was after, and I wanted those bucks so bad. I obsessed about them all year round.
You give them names like
Yeah,
the white
I gave them all names.
What were some names
like
now for us?
Come on,
Lefty.
Lefty.
Hey, we name bucks in Utah. That's like a thing.
You kind of have to.
I love a good name. I love some good deer names.
It just makes it so much easier to describe it. It's like, well, that one with the cheater on the left that has this and that, you have to go through a whole explanation.
That's Dozer over there.
Yeah. It is. It's way easier to remember.
Yeah.
You can text your buddies, hey, saw a dozer, whatever it is.
Well, and it got real exciting then. I mean, I got obsessed with killing a certain buck. And that's when I started to learn way more about animal behavior than I did when I just went out and hunted. So targeting a specific animal, I think, is just same thing I learned when I started hunting with Ryan Lampers. It was blew my mind. We went out to Arizona. We went there with Randy Newberg and crew, and we went out, and I had been there the year before. I shot a Quaddamundi with a bow, which is, epic achievement.
Me, I shot one.
Never failed. Remember you were texting me like.
I looked at about 5 of them. Like, what the hell are these things?
Hit him really close.
Lampers hasn't pulled it off yet, so I got one up on it.
Like, I had one probably 5 feet from me.
He didn't know.
They're just
Grab his
playing.
tail?
There's like 3 of them just playing with each other.
See, that's the thing.
I'm like,
It gives you a false
can
sense.
you shoot these things?
It gives you a false sense of their rarity. Because I can't. There was a lot the year I was there. I haven't seen hardly any since.
Huh.
And I've been trying to kill them.
I shot a big lone male.
Did you?
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
cool animals.
It's very cool. So, but we went out there, and Ryan Glasses. Anyway, he finds a giant coos deer, massive booner class coos, and he shows it to me and David Brinker, and he's like, and it's down there rutting this doe, and he's like, I'm gonna go put a stock on it. Cool, we're gonna watch you, So I watch him through the binos and stuff, and he goes down the hill, real slow, sneaking, like you do. He gets down there, and he's about 80 yards from this buck, and then he just stops. And the buck is running around with this doe, running around. And there's this little creek, like if you hopped in it and just kind of went up this dried up creek bed, it's kind of soft, there's rock, you close that distance. But no, he just sits there on his butt, just at 80. And for hours. And then we're like,
What is he doing?
We're like, hey, do you not see him? There, did you lose track? Like, we'll help you, Like Ryan needs help, And so Ryan then backs out as the wind starts to, before the wind changes, he comes up the hill, and we're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what happened? And he's like, I'll come back tomorrow. I was like, you only had to go like another 30 or 40 yards, and you would kill that buck. He's like, oh, no, I mean, he needs to come to me. The odds of me getting in range.
You're so wired.
Yeah, not getting caught in the sound, like most likely it wouldn't work. I'm like, but you could have killed him tonight. He's like, I could have, maybe, or most likely I would have blown it. He's like, I'll kill him. if it takes me 14 days, 20 days, I'll kill him. He's a dead buck.
Mm-hmm.
And we just drove back to the house. And I'm like, you're going to find him again tomorrow? He's like, yep. The next day, he finds him again. The next day, he finds him again. And he'd be on one side of the mountain, then this side of the mountain, and then that side of the mountain. And I'm like, it blew my mind that he had that ability to find the same animal over and over again across a wide range where they were rutting. Then he figured out some of their behaviors. And then, meantime, you know, if I see a deer, I go to stalk it.
Yep.
I just go.
Yeah.
And then if I blow it, I go find a different one.
Yep.
And Ryan is over there just not stalking anything day after day, just watching them, seeing what they do, where they go, how they behave. And I sneak down on this deer and I shoot my first coos deer with a bow. I was pretty proud of that. Like, it was my second year chasing coos. Got it with a bow. It's an achievement. It's a 3x3 who's with a doe. And I come cruising back to the ranch house, the ranchito. What are I forget what Randy calls it. And I'm sitting there, and guys roll out, and I think the hunting public dudes were there, and a few others, and they're like, "Congratulations, that's so cool!" And I had fame for about 5 minutes. And Ryan in his damn diesel pickup comes rattling in. He drops his tailgate, and there's a Boone and Crockett coos deer in there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, everyone left and went over here, and I just got completely overshadowed, which is like the story of my life.
Yeah.
And anyway, it was a beautiful buck. And what had happened was he knew what they were doing. He knew which way the wind was going. He kind of had he did the same thing he did that night before. He got into a little cut, and he hoped that they would push toward him. And he was probably 90 yards, 100 yards away, and then he just tucked into these little rocks. And he has an uncanny ability to sort of predict where animals will want to go. You know, uncanny. Like, I don't know, like when you look at a hill and you could, you know,
his
it's
mind is
50-50.
visualizing everything that's going to happen.
It's 50-50. They could go here, they could go here. And he's like, no, it's 80-20. How do you know that? Like, how do you know most of the time? Sometimes he's wrong, and they go the other way. But he's uncanny accurate often. And it's kind of hard to, like, figure out how he knew it, because I think maybe a lot of it's he doesn't even know why he knows it. It's just instinct,
Right.
you know? So he got in those little rocks, and then it's funny because the buck he was after was rutting the doe and going at it, and they were getting closer and closer. And so he tucked in the rocks. Well, he could hear him coming down. He had peeked out. He saw a few does, and he just laid back there. And he's in a little pinch where they'd have to cross by close. But he knew he'd have to have his bow drawn when he stepped in, or they would see him. He's too close. I think he was 20 yards.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
And so the doe comes trotting by and blows right past that little opening, and he's in a slit, you know. So he drew his bow back because he knew that buck was going to follow. And he didn't want to have to call or make any sounds, like none of us do with a coos deer, because then they're locked and loaded.
On alert, and man, can they move?
They're so fast. And luckily that buck, and then just stopped 20 yards right in front of his drawn arrow.
He used the force.
And then he smoked it. And it turned out that buck was as bigger than the one that he had been watching 5 minutes earlier, but this buck had come in and taken that buck's doe.
Jeez.
Dang.
That's
and
crazy.
so it wasn't even the one he was trying to get.
You've had the privilege of having some like pretty good hunting partners. So you've been hunting with Lampers. You know, you've hunted with Snyder. Like what's it like? I mean, what is a good hunting partner to you?
I think.
What is it about those guys that just like makes them such a great partner?
They're good at their craft. They're obsessed with their craft.
Obsessed.
You know, I'll say, like, I learned how to backpack. You know, I learned a lot from Snyder. I learned how to shoot a bow. Like, before I met him, I couldn't shoot well at all. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I practiced all the time for years in all the wrong ways.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, so wrong
all
practice.
the wrong ways.
Just building bad habits.
Yeah.
By the time I left, you know, him, I had learned from like alpha bow hunting and Phil Mendoza, and so I had become a proficient archer. I learned how to hunt with Ryan, like in the backcountry, like animals that are old.
Yeah.
Like how to find over and over and over again the same deer and try to kill it. And I started doing that on my own after meeting Ryan, and then finding success, chasing the same buck for 14 days and finally killing it. It's like, that's kind of where it's at now for me. Like,
it is so rewarding to see a deer, just watch him for days on end, figuring everything about him.
yeah.
And it's like being a sponge. When you hunt with other people, it's like their tactics. Like you can learn so much from just watching someone else hunt.
I was reading, or I was listening to Cam's new book.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you on the tail
Yeah.
end of that if you listen to it. And something that he says is it's essentially to be, good at something or to master something, you have to be obsessed.
And I think that's really what they are. I mean, I never went out to when I was in Colorado, I was shooting in the morning at like first light, and then at 10 o'clock, and then at noon, and then in the afternoon. It was like, hey, you want to go shoot bows again? Like we did it 4 times today.
Yeah.
It was obsessive. And I think, with Ryan, same thing. I think what makes – I wanted to – Ryan has always been solo. I mean, partner is not really his style.
Yeah.
Solo is his style.
Yeah.
So it's more like, Brian, you can come along if you can keep up and don't bother me. Right? And my response was, cool, I want to watch.
Yeah.
And then take the pieces I can. And that's how I've approached those people. They say you become like the 5 people you hang out with the most. I really think there's when you hang out with someone that's good at a craft, you rise to that level. With filmmaking, I started following around and working with people that were talented. And then whatever it took, some people, they want to be compensated, or they want to say, what am I going to get out of this? I'm like, all on my own dime, I will get myself into a desk next to somebody in some different state, just watching that. I promise I'm just going to watch you work.
Yeah, to learn.
I'll do whatever it takes to learn, to figure it out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Neville and I just shot around this last weekend. We shot the Total Archery Challenge. We shot one day with just kind of us, and we shot okay.
Yeah.
The next day, he and I shot with Chris B.
Yeah.
And we had a much better round. I would say we shot pretty much 10s the entire round.
Yeah.
I don't know that either of us ever. I mean, I might have missed a 10 or 2, but like for the most part, we shot 10s.
You totally upped your game.
Completely.
And is focused and just
100% because we didn't want to look dumb in front of Chris, and Chris just shoots middle. I mean, he's every time.
Lights out.
So is you downgrading me right now then? Because I was within the first group.
You sucked.
Yeah, it was.
We didn't care. We were just like, it's just Brady.
It's just Brady.
But it is interesting. You're right. There's something to that. I mean, there was definitely like a temperature change. I mean, my focus was better. My form was better. I just, you want to rise to.
It's even in sports. Like, you want to play against the best. I don't want to go practice with people I can just dominate all the time. I'm not getting better that way.
Yeah, so many times my kid will play a team, and I'm like, we are just barely beating this team, but we are so much better than this team. We just played to the level, and then the next week we'll play another team that's way better, and we're right there.
I think it's the same with business.
Yeah.
With all aspects of life. That's a perfect example, the Total Archery Challenge. I was shooting in a group, and Brad Hunt was with me, and Brad was busy chit-chatting and hanging out and being social. So was I, but when Brad came up to the target, he just would talk, boom, just autopilot, right? And he'd shoot a shot that reflected that. And sometimes he'd focus and just nail it because he's quite capable.
Yeah.
It was all about his focus. And for me, hanging out with good archers, it's like every time they loose an arrow, it's perfect, or they don't shoot it. And instilling that habit in myself was something that I'm like, I'm not shooting. Like, if I pull up and I'm not concentrating, usually I just let down.
Yeah.
And I try to make sure that if I'm going to shoot ever, I'm going to shoot the best shot I think I can possibly make.
Yeah, and that rolls into making a stock on an animal. If it's not the right stock, if the wind isn't just right, if that animal is in a position, don't, just like you're saying with Ryan, that example you used on Kuzdar, don't make it, hold off. I mean, it takes so much patience and just, willpower to let that arrow down instead of dump it. Right?
It does.
Because your brain wants you to dump that arrow so bad. You're getting long and you're falling out of your peep. It's like, I could just dump this arrow. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Yeah, it takes a lot of willpower to just let that down, and kind of recoup and try to
I'm going to put a film out here soon of a elk hunt where Ryan shoots a bull like at 5, 6 feet, 10 feet or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be it's an interesting, I think, lesson in hunting. I think most people, they shoot too soon.
Oh, for sure.
We
were just talking about this.
Get
in the moment.
They get in the moment and they take that 40-yard shot instead of the 20-yard shot that's about to present
to happen,
because they just are too impatient, too eager. And I think it's the case with shooting arrows, all that kind of stuff, stalks.
Mm-hmm.
It's that discipline that's not there.
Yeah, it only comes from experience too. Putting yourself there all the time and learning from your mistakes before. Like, I don't want that to happen. I'm going to do my thing. If it doesn't work, back out, redo it again. Have the confidence to kill the next day.
Yeah, I think it's 95% mental and 5% skill. Like, honestly, for years, I could always sneak up to a certain level on animals.
Oh, yeah.
I had the will and the hard work, but I didn't finish.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I got more discipline, and it wasn't until I was like truly and honestly ready to let an animal walk or escape rather than take a subpar shot.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started doing that, all of a sudden I started putting animals on the ground. But for a long time, if I had a shot, I was more anxious to get the shot and to say I had a shot to myself than I was to actually wait for a shot that was a guarantee.
Yeah.
Or more, nothing's a guarantee, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Right.
you always think you have less time than you have. I mean, you get in there tight, and as soon as that animal is even remotely close to a position where you think you might get a shot, I mean, guys are pulling their bow back and letting it rip. And as soon as that housing hits the side of the animal, it's like, let's get rid of this. And I think you're right. I just think, I don't know, you put so much into effort and dreaming of that. You want that moment so bad that you kind of mentally just lose it. I mean, I've been there. I've done that. I remember doing it. I'm getting better at it, but like I remember early on.
Still do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's the mental part I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is the part of the game that I think keeps us coming back and is what we're all trying to overcome.
Yeah, you don't ever want it to go away.
No, because then it would suck.
Well,
it wouldn't suck, but it wouldn't be like
those moments are what you're there for, right?
Right.
It's that intensity, it's the ability and the satisfaction that you feel from being able to keep your shit together and make that happen.
Yep. I think it's so much more complex than we realize in your DNA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there is something about being in bow range on a deer that's, a giant deer that you've worked so hard to get to. But I think, you're so present. Nothing else enters your mind. You're not thinking about emails, the wife, or you're not thinking about anything. Like, everything is that rock going to slide if I even shift one quarter? You hear every sound. You're a heightened alert. Everything is so switched on, and the adrenaline is so high in a way that you can't seem to recreate. Because you will suck wind, sweat, be miserable, hungry, all this stuff for 12 days straight for one close encounter.
And I love that.
And that adrenaline can last for a minute, 3 minutes, 10 minutes, or 2 hours sometimes. And then it's over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think your whole season was dedicated to that moment.
I think that you put it real well. I mean, when else in your life, like especially in this day and age with computers and phones and TVs and cars and everything else that you have going on in your life, do you have the opportunity to just focus on trying to accomplish one task.
You're right.
And it's
flow state.
Yeah, it's flow state.
I think that's it. And I think your body says, we need to get back into that state. Whatever that euphoric state is, your mind and soul is like, it wants it back.
You need more.
For sure.
And that's why we got to try to go hunting as much as possible.
Yes.
That's for you, Porter.
That's for you, Chris Porter.
I need the flow state.
We need flow state.
Like I need water.
Seriously. Write that down.
I'm dying.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just such it's a powerful mover, because I often wonder, people who are late to hunting, they have a late onset, adult onset hunting, and they're out and about and they're doing their thing all these years, and then they discover hunting, they go out and then they do it. And they're like, this did something to me. Mm-hmm. I take it for granted because I've had it since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I've got to taste it and feel it. But let's say you never hunted an animal your whole life. You never hunted at all. And all of a sudden you're like Joe Rogan and you're popping out there with a bow and you're chasing elk for the first time and you're drawing your bow. But like the hunting, you must have such a clearer image of the contrast, life without it, life with it, than we do, because I just had it for as long as I can remember. I can't remember when it wasn't there. And so I think we take it for granted how alluring the pull is. Why do like Navy SEALs and ex-Special Forces and ex-game athletes and so forth that do crazy adrenaline junkie type stuff or just dangerous things in the defense of our nation and so on, they come back from these things and they gravitate toward hunting, and it becomes that thing that they live for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's something in it. I don't know. I mean, I think it's all the things that we talked about. I think it's like an innate in humans to this, to hunt. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anybody that hasn't tried it that just doesn't get that same feeling. I mean, I've got a brother that hasn't hunted since he was a kid. He's never actually killed a big game animal. He hunted us when, he's my older brother, but he would hunt with us when I was a kid. But he texted me a few months ago and was like, hey, I was just scrolling through YouTube, and he's like, I saw, this GOHUNT original, and I clicked on it, and I got to watch you hunt caribou in Alaska. And he's like, I don't know, what the intent of that film was, but whatever it was, it worked, because like now I want to go hunting.
He's hooked.
Yeah, he's hooked. And I was like, okay, so we put together a hunt, but I mean, he's super excited that, but I'm just so excited to get to experience that with him, to just because I know he's gonna feel it. I know what it's meant to me. I know what that feeling, the exact feeling you're talking about, to just be so focused on doing one thing, and it's just one thing. And then on the flip side of that, like that sense of satisfaction, it's so overwhelming when that goes the way it's supposed to. And you hold your mental, you make that shot, you make it count, you make a quick, ethical one-shot kill, and that animal goes down, and it's like, it's even better if it's something that you've scouted for. Yeah. Like when you talk about hunting one animal, those for me are the epitome of hunting.
Yeah. I think there's a testosterone boost or something that comes off of these trips.
I don't know what it is, but it's
something.
Sucks you in. I know that.
My the first film I produced was with my buddy Anthony. We went to high school together. We're still close, dear friends, and I filmed his dad in his mid-60s shoot his first bull with a bow. And in that film, he said, my dad and I were really different. We don't have a lot in common. We really don't. Like, we're opposites of each other, kind of getting on each other's nerves even, He's like, but hunting is the vehicle that we use to bond and to be together. Hunting is the vehicle that has helped them be a close father and son. That's the one thing that they really relate to and are on the same page with, and that they can then grow. And I think shared suffering bonds people more than anything on the planet.
Oh yeah, that's how you get to know somebody real quick.
That's right. And there's something, it's just like when I would do these grueling CrossFit workouts with certain friends, those people suffered right alongside me with these hard things we did week after week, day after day. And there's something about that endeavor, cheering each other on, helping each other through it, and both relating to the pain that brings you closer. And the same thing with guys that you hunt with when you do crazy hunts. Like, I feel closer to Brady and Pedro because we hunted together, period. And it's always going to be there now. You're not going to have that without sharing that pain. And I think you and Ryan probably are even closer because you guys did some
because they were cuddling at night.
Because they were in the same tent.
Because
they were big spoon, little spoon.
Brady got to experience what I try to avoid.
Yeah, we would so many times go down the mountain and then glass, and all of a sudden there'd be a bear back up the mountain where we just came from. Like, do we want to go 4 miles back up there, gain elevation? We both look at each other like, game on. Let's go.
Yeah.
Turn around and go do the same thing again, suffer, and then go back again, do the next day.
And
drop 2,000 feet, climb 2,000 feet.
When Ryan hasn't tagged out, when he's not successful, every day he's not successful, the hiking increases tenfold.
He
just gets more and more
angsty,
and he's
angry hiking,
and he hikes. So I don't like him to not.
You wanted him to tag out early.
7, 8, 9. If he gets more and more manic,
you want that tag filled.
Then you're like doing crazy stuff like, there's nothing in this basin. We're going to hike 9 miles in the dark to the next thing so we can be there at first light. And it's like, all right.
Right.
But
he's obsessed.
He finds them. You know?
Yeah, for
obsessed
sure.
with his craft.
Obsessed. Which is good because, you know, anybody, I love being around people who are obsessed.
It brings the best out of you.
Yeah.
It just literally does.
It pushes you. I look at Cam running ultras and marathons on the daily.
I think he's running one today.
I'm like, dude, Brian, you are slacking.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
We need those people to help us question and to motivate us. It's a special thing.
Yeah. Yeah, to motivate. I think nowadays it seems like it's a lot of people like trying to hate, like, oh, you don't need to do this. You don't need to run that much to be a good hunter and all that shit. It's like, how about you just look at it the other way? Like, maybe this will help me out. Maybe what they're doing is kind of badass and hard and tough.
Did Kobe Bryant have to wake up at 2 a.m. to go shoot baskets and shoot baskets again? No, but he did because he wanted to freaking win.
Yeah.
Everything you can to do to put yourself in that position.
Yeah, if you listen to Cam's book, he says something like, do you have to do those things? But he says no, but he started to think about what it would look like if he did. And I think I don't know, I thought that was interesting and it resonated with me. You know, do you have to do these things? No, but what would it look like if you were willing to sacrifice, you know?
And he'll be the first one to tell you, don't do it like me. Just do
it for you.
Just do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Remember years ago, I was hanging out with him, and we had just done a workout together, and we were getting breakfast, and I was hanging out with Cameron Haynes. It was pretty cool. He grew up in my neck of the woods there in Oregon, and we were talking, and he was just describing, I was really active in CrossFit. I had good numbers, speed, time. Like, it was my passion. I mean, I love climbing rope and doing rings and handstand walks, and like, I just nerded out on all the gymnastics type stuff and the heavy lifts. That's my thing. Do I want to run a marathon? No. But do I want to, sling weights and do CrossFit stuff all day long? That is that is just, to me, fun. And Dan Staton was there with us, and Dan's like, yeah, same thing. Like, CrossFit's his, like, one of those fun things he wanted to do. And, the gist of that Cam was saying was, I don't do whatever you like. Don't do what I like. Do what you like, but do something.
Yep.
All right.
And I think people are uncomfortable when they're around individuals who win. Some are inspired because they want to figure it out, and they're trying. But you have those that have, at one point or another, they're weak, and they're like they've decided that where they're at in life isn't their fault.
Right.
And where you're at in life, you're there because you cheated or something.
Somebody gave you something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a funny perspective. Some people.
Well, there's so many quotes in the book, especially where he's like, it's basically, by basically winners, you're going to get hated on. That's part of winning.
Yeah. It's a great book. I mean, for anybody listening, if you haven't listened to it or read it, I'm not a Cameron Haynes. I wouldn't say I was a fan prior to. I mean, I was a fan. I read, Backcountry Bow Hunting. I bought that book straight away. I read that thing cover to cover multiple times, and I followed along with Cam. But, just from a distance, I wouldn't say I was like a super fan or anything like that. And then when the book came out, I was kind of like, yeah, I want to check that out and read it just because I see what he's got going on in it. But I would say even from somebody who was like, a little bit I'm skeptic by nature. I'm skeptic of like pretty much everything, right?
Yeah.
I just by nature. But I would say it's one of the better reads I've read in a really long time. And I'm probably 2 times through it at this point. And
It's
I would
such a good
say
book.
if you're listening, it would behoove you to read it.
Dude,
you'll get something
whether you're
out
a
of it.
fan of Cam or not, he's a freak.
Yeah.
He's a freak, and so is Goggins. They're freaks.
Yeah, and
and
he uses
help
the
but
word
appreciate.
undeniable, be undeniable, and he is. I mean, no matter what you think of that guy, he is undeniable.
I just think it's fascinating to be around people like that.
Yeah, me too. He's an interesting guy for sure. And
First of all,
motivating.
He's like 52 or 3 or something.
Yep.
Have you
Dude,
read,
I don't
crazy.
understand. Like, I try to be a badass, fit guy. And maybe I'm just too weak. That's the problem,
not reaching your potential?
But I'm like, I leave those. After I read You Can't Hurt Me by Goggins and stuff.
Yep.
All that stuff just again makes me think, kind of what Cam says. What would it look like if I did all these things, if I tried to accomplish this level? And the reality is, I'm no young spring chicken, and neither is Ryan. We both talk about it all the time. Like, we want to do this for years and years and years to come, and we want to show older guys that you can do it. But it does take, like, we eat careful. We exercise. We take the right kind of supplements.
Yep.
We work hard at like my buddies. They're busy eating hamburgers and fries and ice cream. Look, it tastes good, but it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Right.
And it takes. I'm just saying, it takes an incredible level of discipline to age well.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, that's well said. It's a deep level of discipline. I was listening to a podcast. I don't know if it was a podcast or a video that you mentioned Dan Staton, but he was talking specifically about diet. And he said at one point, he said, you get into your 30s, your 40s, you can't eat junk. You can't eat like maybe you did when you were, a teenager. And something he said that I thought was interesting. He said, it's time to grow up. It's time to be an adult. You've had your fun.
Yep,
You ate
honest.
the junk food.
Yep.
You ate the burgers and the fries and all the things that you ever wanted. But if you want to do this, you want to age well, it's time to grow up. And like I think about that a lot. I think, am I an adult?
Yeah.
How much of an adult am I here?
I think Thomas Sowell says there's no solutions. There's just alternatives or something like that. His whole point was, or was it? There's just like 2 ways. You could have the ice cream and all that other stuff, or you can be really fit. You just don't get to have both. And it takes a grown-up to decide to come along and say, hey, I'm willing to sacrifice this whole thing for the rest of my life. Like, I'll still have some ice cream here and there, boys.
Sure.
But you get it. Like, I'm willing to get rid of a whole ton of things in my life for this thing over here. You look at Kobe Bryant.
Right.
He's a perfect example of this, where he's like, I didn't go on vacations. I didn't do all this stuff like everyone else did. I did this discipline. I wanted to be the best in the world, and everything got sacrificed for that. They're like, what about your friendships? They died. They suffered.
Yeah.
They're gone. And then after my career was over, I picked some of those back up. The real friends stayed. But, yeah, we're not the same as we were because
Crazy.
Yep.
I did everything.
Yep, you got to be obsessed.
I think at some point you have to decide if you want to be successful in some endeavor. And I think often it is fulfilling in a certain way. there's certain things you don't get to have anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I get invited to go duck hunting. I'm like, sorry, big game. I don't have time for anything else. That's it. That's my focus. Bow and arrow, big game. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
You could be well-rounded. You could do all those things. But for me, there's certain things that I have painfully cut out of my life because I got to a grown-up point where I realized I couldn't have it all, and I started to pick and choose the things that I wanted. I'm with Brad Hunt right now. He's like 31 or something. Brad's at this stage where he still thinks, because he's young, that he can do everything. You can't. You get to a point in life where you realize, okay, I always wanted to do this Z thing, but I will if I want to achieve this goal over here, which is the priority, this won't happen. And then you cut it off. And every time you cut those things out and get rid of those things in focus of the thing you really, really want, the things you really, really want, it's like you amputated an arm or a piece, like a dream.
That's why I sold my fishing boat, sold all my fishing rods. Like, that was just a hole in the water I dumped money into, and just took a lot of my weekends away from me. And I wanted to hunt
And it
mule deer.
sucks. But at the same time,
I had a passion. I want to chase it.
yeah, you don't get to have both. There are mutually exclusive aspects to the goals you pursue. And I think when you're obsessed, that's what happens.
Yeah. I agree. It's been a good conversation.
This is gonna be a good one. This is gold.
I feel like we could go on forever, but we've kept you for over an hour. So we probably ought to turn you loose and get you some dinner. You're on Utah time, so you're past dinner.
Yeah,
you're well past
I
dinner.
know. But it's been great, guys.
Yeah, we
thanks for
appreciate
coming
it.
on. I really
Podcast.
appreciate it.
I'm motivated to go pound some
I know,
miles
right?
in now tonight.
I'm ready to do something crazy.
I got here last night. I did 100 burpees in the hotel and 30 handstand push-ups, 100 step-ups, and I think I did, some lunges and handstand walks across the hotel,
Through the casino.
Yeah. But I feel like all those things, like staying consistent,
Yep.
even though you're
Yeah.
traveling,
Some
even though you're on the
little
road,
things, yeah.
again, like there's this obsession. Like I said, it takes a lot of discipline to age well.
Yeah.
And you can.
Mm-hmm.
I
Just have
spend
to
more
make yourself
time.
do it.
I spend more time rolling and doing soft tissue work and stretching
Mm-hmm.
than I do actually exercising nowadays. But that's where I'm at in life. That's what you have to do. So
Let's go rip a night hike. Up in the
go.
mountains
Hey,
right now.
I'll be
I'm
up bright
ready.
and early
I'm
tomorrow.
ready to feel better and hunt harder. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Yes.
Use promo code TRAIL.
Use promo code Neville.
Cut.
Promo code Neville.
Cut.
I'm just not even going to compete, and I'm going to win.
Cut.
yeah, no
I'm
doubt.
just going to sit in the back and take all you guys'